It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we begin a Tuesday. Gary, how are you?
Not bad at all. Doing good.
All right.
You know, wasn't going to look at Drudge Report, figuring he was still totally on the Oscars. You know,
I think he's still at his own Oscars after party. I think he's still there. I don't know who he's wearing, but just him.
I saw the story that was shaded in red, and I went, what's this?
Yeah.
And this is really interesting. I mean, there's a ton of stuff to talk about, but I just saw this before we went on the air, and I went, okay. Yeah. And it talks about the relationship between automobile companies and insurance companies. Now, listen to this. The guy's name was Ken Dahl. He said he's always been a careful driver. He's the owner of a software company near Seattle, and he drives a leased Chevrolet Bolt. He's never been responsible for an accident. So Mr. Dahl, 65, was surprised, 65 years of age, surprised in 2022 when the cost of his car insurance jumped by 21%. And he's like, hey, I'm 65. It should be going down. I'm the safest driver out there.
Sure.
Quotes from other insurance companies were also high. One insurance agent told him his LexisNexis report was a factor.
Oh?
LexisNexis is a New York-based global data broker with a risk solutions division that caters to the auto insurance industry and has traditionally kept tabs on car accidents and tickets. Upon Mr. Dahl's request, LexisNexis sent him a 258-page consumer disclosure report about him, which it must provide per the Fair Credit Reporting Act. What it contained stunned him. More than 130 pages detailing each time he or his wife had driven the Bolt over the previous 6 months. It included the dates of 640 trips, their start and end times, the distance driven, and an accounting of any speeding, hard braking, or sharp accelerations. The only thing it didn't have is where they had driven the car. On a Thursday morning in June, for example, the car had been driven 7.33 miles in 18 minutes. There had been 2 rapid accelerations and 2 incidents of hard braking. According to the report, the trip details had been provided by General Motors, the manufacturer of the Chevy Volt. LexisNexis analyzed that driving data to create a risk score for insurers to use as one factor of many to create a more personalized insurance coverage, according to LexisNexis spokesperson Dean Carney. 8 insurance companies had requested information about Mr. Dahl from LexisNexis over the previous month. Mr. Dahl said, it felt like a betrayal. They're taking information that I didn't realize was going to be shared and screwing with our insurance.
Mm-hmm.
In recent years, insurance companies have offered incentives for people who install the devices in their cars or download smartphone apps that monitor their driving, including how much they drive, how fast they take corners, how hard they hit the brakes, and whether they speed. But drivers are historically reluctant to participate in these programs. As Ford Motor put it in a patent application that describes what is happening instead, car companies are collecting information directly from internet-connected vehicles for use by the insurance industry. Sometimes this happens with a driver's awareness and consent. Car companies have established relationships with insurance companies so that if drivers want to sign up for what's called the usage-based insurance, where rates are set based on monitoring of their driving habits, it's easy to collect that data wirelessly from their cars. But in other instances, something much sneakier has happened. Modern cars are internet-enabled, allowing access to services like navigation, roadside assistance, and car apps that drivers can connect to their vehicles to locate them or unlock them remotely. In recent years, automakers including GM, Honda, Kia, and Hyundai have started offering optional features in their connected car apps that rate people's drivings. Some drivers may not realize it. If they turn on those features, the car companies then give the information about how they drive to data brokers like LexisNexis.
There is, on some vehicles, there is a way to opt out. It's just like the permissions you give apps.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of have to go, when you're setting it up or when the dealership is setting it up for you, and you go through all of that, because it's different, depends on, Mopar has the Uconnect, GM, I think a lot of the GM, if not all the GM products are, it kind of runs through OnStar in terms of your Wi-Fi hotspot, so your internet capability in your car, and the apps that go with it. My last truck had it. My new truck has it, but you have to go through those permissions deliberately, and you can rescind those permissions in sharing that data.
So especially troubling is that some drivers with vehicles made by GM said they were tracked even when they did not turn on the feature called OnStar Smart Driver,
Exactly.
and that their insurance rates went up as a result. GM's OnStar Smart Driver service is optional to customers, a GM spokesperson said. Customer benefits include learning more about their safe driving behaviors or vehicle, like I need to know what my safe driving behavior is.
Right.
It's like I need somebody to monitor. I know.
Yeah, I know the light's red, but I need to get there now.
Yeah, it's not for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, this is actually in my new vehicle, and it is a GM make. They do this initial setup, and, free trial is always, it's a free trial, but we need your credit card. No, you don't. You know how I know? Because I'm not going to give it to you. And I told and no offense to OnStar, it's just I don't need OnStar. It wasn't something I was going to opt in on. She was frustrated by the end of the call because I wouldn't give her a card number. I said, thank you for the free trial, but I'm not going to give you a card number. And I don't need the Wi-Fi hotspot in my car. I've got one of the new phones. If you've got a 5G phone, I don't know why you would need that. And I've got Android integration into my dash. I don't need any of these features like my app. My truck has an app where I can, start it and everything. I don't need that. I have I can do that with buttons on my keys. I don't need to do that. And you have to be careful, of how much data you're going to share, because once this kind of thing, again, goes viral, a lot of people will be revisiting those services and those permissions that they give those services, because if you subscribe to something, if you're paying extra for something, I don't know what the actual payment is on that. I know with Mopar, they combine it. One of the packages is combined with a satellite radio, and you're paying, I don't know, $29 a month, whatever it is. So you're paying for something, and they're sharing that information again.
Well, why are they sharing it? What is the incentive of the automobile companies to share that information with the insurance companies?
No, it's a good question.
Because if insurance companies came to me, we want you to share the information. What are you, nuts? I'm not going to.
These are my customers.
These
I'm
are my
not doing
customers.
that.
I want repeat business.
Right.
I'm not going to do it.
If they want to share it, then they can proactively volunteer with their insurance company to get one of those plugins under their dash. By the way, I don't know if only one person has told me this, but I have a great deal of respect for this person who is an automotive expert. Again, I just want to be careful here. That person told me it's not good for your onboard computer to drive around with something plugged into your onboard computer that's extracting data on the fly, because it messes with the flow of the onboard computer. Again, I'm not the expert. Someone who's got 30-plus years in automotive experience told me that and said, he believes it's, in fact, it's part of the problem where he works, what he does for a living. They can often go and see that one of these dongles or whatever they call them is plugged in, and they will unplug it, and then they will drive it again, and all of a sudden everything the computer kind of naturally resets itself. I don't know if that's the case with all of them or if that's the case with all makes. I didn't get into an interview with the guy, but those are the things that I, my insurance company, my old insurance company, every time you logged on, the prompt was a full-page prompt, takeover prompt. Hey, get the DriveWise, which is, I think that was from Allstate. Get the DriveWise. In other words, we'll send you the dongle so you can. No, absolutely not. No. Here's what you need to know, and you already know this. I haven't had an accident, and I don't know how long. I don't know the last time I had an at-fault accident. I don't know. It's been ages, decades. That's what you need to know. And I get it that I live in a major metro area. I live in a construction zone that's been a construction zone for 30 years.
And by the way, you're saying, Eric, stop exaggerating. You're right. It's longer than 30.
It's longer than 30. I've only lived here 30 years. It's been a construction zone since, I don't know, the 1300s. But something like that. It's even worse. I was in it today. It's that exit down there at 35, to basically get to our studios and everything else. And I was in it during the day. I was in it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's impossible. I mean, it's just impossible. And it's, we got millions and millions of cars that we share the road with. I understand that risk goes up, or the probability of getting into an accident goes up. I also understand the cost of vehicles has gone up. The cost of repair for vehicles has gone up. I had a chat with my insurance agent just a few weeks ago. And I get all of that. But I'm not going to ask you to track me, and the OEMs need to know this better not be going on with your customers on a wide scale voluntarily without their permission. And if there is a way in your vehicles, whichever OEM you're with, if the OEMs have an opt-out on those permissions, they need to be proactive in promoting that opt-out, because this is something people don't want to be tracked. That's a major, major problem. They just don't.
Yeah, that's one question I have is, what is the incentive for the automobile
That's a great
company?
Question.
Why would they do that? Are there kickbacks that they're getting from the insurance company? Does the insurance company say, all right, for every one you give us, we'll give you some cash? Otherwise, why would you do it?
I don't know any other incentive.
We'll have more on this coming up in one point here. You're right. Construction started on I-35 back in, it was about 1830 as they were building the Alamo. So the traffic going down I-35 into San Antonio.
Yes, exactly.
So it's been going on since 1836. So that is more than 30 years.
Yes, exactly. Just a few more years than 30. Yes.
And it even took longer back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a month to get to San Antonio from here.
Right.
And there wasn't really a lot of traffic on I-35 at that point.
There wasn't. It was mostly horses.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. It's not always easy to spring back from the harsh days of winter to warmer months ahead. From de-icing chemicals to hidden debris underneath snow and ice, winter conditions can do serious damage to your truck. Here's a must-do maintenance check to help you minimize downtime and stay rolling. Make sure your fluids are at proper levels ahead of spring. Fluid is to trucks what blood is to the human body. Low fluid can be just as harmful as no fluid, and the damage this will cause to your truck is unavoidable. Pay attention to your engine oil, coolant levels, power steering fluid, transmission fluid, brake fluid, and differential fluid.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carmen. I'm Gary McNamara. Just another story about car companies sharing your driving information with the insurance companies. A Cadillac owner in this article, a Cadillac owner in Florida said he had not heard of Smart Driver and never noticed it in the My Cadillac app. He reviewed the paperwork he signed at the dealership when he bought his Cadillac in the fall of 2021 and found no mention of signing up for it. Signing up for it. When a customer accepts the user terms and privacy statements, which are separately reviewed in the enrollment flow, they consent to sharing data with third parties. OnStar's representative said in a private, referring to OnStar's privacy statement, but that statement section on third-party business relationships does not mention Smart Driver. It mentions SiriusXM as a company GM might share data with, not LexisNexis Risk Solutions, which GM has partnered with since 2019. What does that mean, partnered with?
Well,
I mean, I know what that means. They're sharing it. What I'm wondering is, what does GM get out of it?
Yeah, what is the incentive to partner with them?
And then this, I think it's the same guy here. Numerous people on forums complained about spiking premiums as a result. A Cadillac driver in Palm Beach County, Florida, who asked not to be named because he is considering a lawsuit against GM, was denied auto insurance by 7 companies in December. Now, let's look at this here and stereotype a little bit. If you're a Cadillac owner in Florida, you're not 25.
No, you were not.
So he was considering a lawsuit after he was denied auto insurance by 7 companies in December. When he asked an agent why, she advised him to pull his LexisNexis report. He discovered 6 months of his driving activity, including many instances of hard braking and hard accelerating, as well as some speeding. Here's the best quote. I don't know the definition of hard braking. My passenger's head isn't hitting the dash. Same with acceleration. I'm not peeling out. I'm not sure how the car defines that. I don't know if I'm driving aggressively or dangerously. When he finally obtained car insurance through a private broker, it was double. So he's a senior citizen.
Right.
Double what he had previously been paying.
Here's from the GM agreement. This is, again, their General Motors U.S. Connected Services Privacy Statement, last updated, the one I have in front of me, last updated July 1st, 2023. Getting to the point of that, the one driver not realizing, that the agreement said nothing about sharing with LexisNexis. Here's what I have in front of me. We may share your information within GM with automotive dealers, licensees, and companies with whom we enter into business relationships.
Oh.
Well, that last part is a broad group.
Yep.
And, that's all right. Sorry. Now, it does say on certain items you may be asked permission, or we may ask you permission before we may have to ask you permission. And it says you have certain rights. Well, no, I have every right, actually. And one of the, the first option would be not to drive one of your vehicles. I mean, it said you have options, not rights. You have options and on some of these. No, I have options on all of them. And it would be, I'm not going to drive a vehicle with that kind of technology equipped. I know that narrows it down to a 1973 Pinto.
Maverick?
Exactly.
You were thinking Pinto? I was thinking Maverick.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. One of the things that I saw They said one of the things that you may not be able to get insurance is if you go 80 miles an hour. And it's like, well, does that apply to Texas?
Wait a minute. Are you saying if we only go 80 miles an hour? Because this is Texas, so
right. You'd be. That's right. In Texas, no, that would be it.
Yeah.
In Texas, if you're driving 80, that would be
too slow for traffic.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're
which is dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
So
our minimum speed is not 40 in Texas; it's 80. Not true. Don't do 80. Hey, I heard it on the radio, officer. These two guys, I'm pretty sure they were both cops.
What, officer, I heard Eric and Gary tell me that I'm not supposed to go beneath 80.
But, Your Honor, if our names are ever uttered as illegal defense, oh my gosh, that person is in trouble.
Man, you are in deep trouble. So, yeah, this is really interesting. And I thought just after the talk that we had about what's coming up here in a couple of years, unless the Republicans are able to change it,
right,
which is some type of monitoring device,
right, then
think about it. It's almost as if, when you think about it, everything that the government is doing, it's almost to drive you out of a vehicle.
So if you think about it really is.
If you're going to be monitoring, we're going to have cameras looking at your eyes and laser beams checking your face to make sure that you're not, you're not tired, and every way that you drive is being monitored and sent to your insurance companies.
Breathalyzers and all this.
Breathalyzers in every vehicle. And
I think if they're going to use the technology, for people who are prone to, drink and drive, if they're repeat offenders or whatever, that's one thing. But I think we need to integrate the technology on like garlic breath, because don't let that person go to the office if they, that, and the one I'm talking about. And so in the morning, they get in their car and then they have coffee and garlic breath. No, the car just shuts down. Sorry, time to stay home. It's interesting. The technology is always interesting. But they are really designing a world where, okay, this isn't about your personal freedom. And keep in mind, it really is about your personal freedom. When we talk about moving about freely, and with the interstate system that we have in the U.S., my neighborhood and that strip of I-35 notwithstanding, it's been under construction since the 1800s. That's part of who we are as a society, a free society in the United States. And I have European friends who, and there are a lot of people that are, nope. A buddy of mine grew up in, I don't think he lived in New York City proper, but around New York City, and he was used to taking the subway and all that. And he said, it's just too expensive to own a car up there. But for most of us, it's really the only way. We're going through now our grandkids starting to get their cars. The first one got hers, and now the second one is shopping, and all that. They've saved money, and they want, which is interesting because it's a generational thing. They want that freedom too. Now, you and I grew up in an era where it was like, okay, can I get my hardship license at like 15? Because in Texas, if you were 15 and it was a hardship, like a buddy of mine, only child and also single parent. His mom, his father died in Vietnam. And so David got a hardship at 15, and we were all just jealous because, that's the thing. We wanted to be able to drive as soon as possible, learner's permit for the rest of us at 15, and then license at 16. Now, older Eric believes that it should be 25 learner's permit and 30 to get your license.
Well, I've often told the story. There were two rules in my house enforced by my father, and that was at 16 you get your license.
Yep.
There was no hardship license
right
in New York. I don't know if there's one now, but there wasn't when I was growing up. But at 16, you had no choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you learned to drive.
And some of my sisters resisted it.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, well, we don't want to know if it's like, you go get it.
Yeah.
And of course, my brother and I, yeehaw!
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
and then when we got our license, I mean, it would be, you know, my mom, John, we need to get some milk. My brother and I fighting who's going to drive to get the milk.
Right.
And it was like, it took you. Well, the dairy. Remember, there were dairy stores.
Yeah.
Remember,
yeah
wow,
yeah.
there were actually dairy.
Wow.
We went to the dairy store. Gary,
wow.
how the hell old are you? But we went to the.
We also had bread stores.
I'll never forget. We went to Mesmer's.
Oh, wow.
And to get the milk.
All right.
And it was probably 3/4 of a mile away from the house. It would always take us roughly
2 hours.
90 to 120 minutes to complete, you know, that less than 2 mile round trip.
Sure.
And
right.
you know something? They never ever bothered us. I'll never forget. My sisters used to go to dance recital all the time.
Right.
And it was like, all right, we got to pick the girls up from dance. My brother and I fighting over, we'll do it.
Right.
When does it end? Yeah. Well, they're done at 7:00.
Right.
All right. Well, we want to leave at 5:30 to make sure that
exactly.
that we get there on time. And so,
you were never on time, even still.
No, why are you late?
Left an hour and a half ago.
Well, we got some of our buddies and drove around
exactly.
for 90 minutes. But this is interesting here, where they talk that we were talking about LexisNexis Risk Solutions. There's another company that they talk about called Verisk, Verisk, provides insurers with trip data and a risk score approved by insurance regulators in 46 states and the District of Columbia. Mm-hmm. Said a spokesperson, Amy Eberstein. Automakers that Verisk gets data from provide their customers notice and obtain appropriate consent. Some drivers who have had Smart Driver turned on, though, said they did not realize that they were enrolled until they saw warnings on online forums and then checked their app. They quickly unenrolled themselves by turning off Smart Driver in their car app. They talked to this law professor in Chicago in this article that says he's in favor of usage-based insurance because when drivers know that they're being monitored, they drive differently. And they said, and that's a good thing because it makes them safer. But he said he was troubled by the stealth enrollment in programs and with surprising and potentially data collection that could be that could hurt you. He goes, there's no public safety benefit if people don't know that how they drive will affect how much they pay for their insurance. But with everything that we've talked about, you know, again, with what the Democrats passed in the infrastructure bill that would, and new vehicles like in 2026, they don't know what the technology is,
right.
But it would monitor you to make sure you're not, you know, the cameras, whatever technology they use. Mm-hmm. I just use laser beams because I wanted to say laser. But whatever they use to monitor your face.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they're talking about breathalyzers, making sure there's a sensor in there to make sure you're not drinking. That would be in all new vehicles. And then you compare it, then you take that and add to it everything that they're talking here. Because if it's voluntarily now, with the way our society is going, government will eventually mandate it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it. Take that information, use it however you can to control. You know, sharing that when you just read the part about sharing with insurance regulators in 48 states. Of course. I mean, the insurance regulators love this kind of data. You know, it's like our motto here at Red Eye Radio, safety third. It's priorities are different in insurance, and
alcohol first, fun second, safety third.
Keep your knees at 8 and 4.
8 and 4.
So coming up, traffic on all fours. Here's.
By the way, for those that only had a digital clock,
right? I know.
8 and 4. What the hell are you talking about?
My new truck has a display where it's like it will give you a digital image of an analog clock, and I thought, okay, that's just weird.
I've got it too in my car.
Weird.
Like, why would I?
It's just weird. But in the information age, there's always been data. Remember the whole thing with iPhone. It tracks everything. Well, yeah, if you leave your maps on, and then the permissions, now have changed, especially with apps. Allow this only while the app is in use.
Right.
That kind of thing. And you can go back and you can rescind permissions on your phone. You can do that, and that's pretty easy. Taking those permissions back in your vehicle becomes more complicated. My new vehicle, my new truck is a lot heavier than my old one. It's a couple 1,000 pounds heavier. And it also has a much bigger engine. And you actually benefit. We all, know this. It's a very simple thing. But you can tell the way that they've got the acceleration in a certain mode. If I don't put it in sport mode, if I don't put it in sport mode, the acceleration is such that it kind of retrains. It retrains your behavior so that you're slowly accelerating, right? And you're getting the best fuel mileage. That's the idea. I don't have one of those that it's an 8-cylinder. It's not one, though, that takes it down to a 6-cylinder or 4-cylinder at times. It's just kind of retraining your foot, right?
Or doesn't the sport mode is simply lowering the gear?
That's it. You're starting in a lower gear, and it's a 10-speed. So
but you think
automatic.
When I first saw I had the sport gear, I went, I've never used it ever.
I
I've never
tried
used
it.
Oh yeah, yes.
To see the difference, and that was it.
Yes,
so
same with me. And I went, oh, it's a lower gear. And it's like, put it in sport mode. And of course, somebody from my generation, sport mode, I'm sitting there in my mind.
Burning out your tires?
No, since I know how a vehicle works, I'm thinking that that the fuel injectors are squirting more gasoline into the cylinder.
Exactly.
And the mixture is just the perfect mixture to get you that, extra 20% out of your engine. It's like, no, it's just a lower gear.
Yeah, it's just shifting down. And so, but that's, there are all these, elements that are built into these cars, that are about performance. It's also about, like I mentioned, fuel mileage and everything else. But when that data gets to the point we've talked about over the years, because in trucking, it's also a big thing. There's a lot of truck drivers will tell you, well, I don't want an in-cab camera. And so if you're a company driver, you really, may not have a choice because the company owns the truck. If they own the equipment, they get to set the guidelines there.
Yeah, that already exists.
Yeah. And so, that pushback years ago was pretty substantial. And we had the conversation about, limiting trucks, the speed limiters, and how dangerous I believe that is. And because we used to, in our state, split speed limits. Other states, I don't know if they still do. Texas does not any longer. But slower limits for trucks. And you may think, oh, well, that's great, for big rigs. No, it's not, because you don't want them going slower. Same thing with speed limiters. But speed limiters, if the company owns the truck, then, all right, they get to do that, and I recognize that property right. But then the push to have it regulated, where all trucks have to be governed at whatever it is. Well, that was to me, that's always been there was a bogus argument. There were numbers and studies that were manipulated, and it's not something I support at all. If you own the truck, you can decide that for yourself. Because I do believe those split speed limits or split limitations basically is going to be dangerous on the roads. I don't know what you do here, except if you're one of these OEMs or any of the OEMs, you should probably get the word out about how you can opt out when it comes to sharing data from your car.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carmen, and I'm Gary McNamara. Biden's budget, we won't spend a lot of time on it.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. We will get to that. And, if we're talking Biden's budget, then we must talk greed.
Oh, yeah. By
So-
the way, why, when you know it's not going anywhere, why limit it to 7.3 trillion?
That's right. Make it 14, and then you care more.
100 trillion.
I like that even better.
Yeah.
Hey, let's not stretch this thing out. Let's destroy the country right now.
All at once.
Come on,
Because-
Democrats.
Throw 100 trillion in, and then it would be like, $1 million for every household. And then everybody go, what? He wants to give us $1 million.
Plus, almost half the parents still financially support their adult children. How much per month? Ooh, we'll tell you.
All right.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carmen, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Sad note. Saw when I woke up. I said, oh, man, no. Singer Eric Carmen, former lead singer of the Raspberries.
Yeah.
Dead at age 74.
Died in his sleep. They, no cause of death yet, but died in his sleep. And, you and I were talking off the air. He had been pretty active on social media in years past. And you were saying you searched and couldn't find him on X, on Twitter?
I checked real quick, and I did.
Yeah.
There were Eric Carmens that came up, but I couldn't find one that was him. And so, but he used to be. He was not a liberal. Now, I'm not sure if he was conservative, libertarian, or Donald Trump's new party, Common Sense.
Exactly, the Common Sense Party.
That comes out from yesterday, his interview on CNBC.
Right.
But he definitely was not a liberal.
Yeah.
I mean, and you and I used to follow him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he'd be up at 1, 2 in the morning and tweeting out stuff.
Yep.
And so
and he was appeared to be in great shape.
yeah.
In his later years, the closest brush with fame, San Francisco 90. I think this would be 92-ish, 93, somewhere in there, at a record convention. And I get on the elevator to go up to my room, and it's me and Eric Carmen. And I know that he wanted to be all by myself. I got on the elevator. Sorry.
Oh, my Love Life song.
Joke. Yeah, there you go. And so we got up, and then the door opened on my floor, and he got out, and I thought, oh, we're on the same floor. And then he's walking down this hallway, and I start walking down the hallway behind him, and I thought, Eric Carmen thinks I'm stalking him right now. This is what's going on. I should go down to the lobby or something and then come back up, because this looks creepy. I look creepy to begin with, but this looks creepy. So I'm following him, and then he goes up to his door with his hotel key, and he's kind of not looking at me, but you can tell kind of in the peripheral sense, like, this guy, like, walking right up. I'm in the room right next to his. And he puts the key up to the door, and I'm thinking, oh. So I quickly get my key out to show, yeah, this is my room. It's legit. I didn't say anything to him. And then I went in the room, and I was like, okay, that was just weird. He probably was kind of freaking out a little bit. I mean, he seemed to be okay, but I wasn't. I was like, and then I had to ask myself, are you stalking Eric Carmen? And the answer was no.
I mean, his when you look at his solo career after the Raspberries, I mean, a lot of it was the ballads that would,
Yeah.
like if you ever worked for a radio station, had to play All by Myself.
Yeah.
To go through the intro part of it was so slow, where you were pulling your hair out. But did you ever see the comedian, my old friend Dwight Slade, do the thing where he's driving? He's driving down the road and he's driving to different music.
Yes,
And
I have seen that.
It's real.
That's funny.
You can see it on
That's
YouTube.
hilarious.
It's really. I mean, it's a great comedy bit.
Yeah.
Because he had the timing down.
Yeah.
Dwight had it down, and if people don't know who he is, he was, I guess, childhood friends with
Bill Hicks.
Bill Hicks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you see Bill Hicks the documentary, Dwight's in it a lot, and then Dwight did his own thing in stand-up comedy for years. Then he got sick a few years ago.
Yeah,
but just a great guy. Used to work with him at our great affiliate in Portland, KXL.
Yeah,
and but he does a great, and
he includes that song in the bit.
Eric Carmen comes on, and all of a sudden he reaches to the floor, and his hand becomes a gun, and he just puts it in his mouth like, okay.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, and it was yesterday when I woke up, and again, I didn't spend a lot of time on social media when I got up because there's just so many things to talk about. But Eddie Trunk said that the first big chords that he related to was in Go All the Way.
The guitar work it's air guitar gold is what it is.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's just I loved it. It was I've always loved that song because of the guitar work in it. And then you fast forward to the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, Hungry Eyes. And I mean, that was a monster of a hit. But the Raspberries Go All the Way.
He did Never Gonna Fall in Love Again, right?
Yep.
Gonna Fall in Love Again. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was.
I played that in adult contemporary radio, but I always thought the thing, because I remember I bought the K-Tel record. I still have it.
Yeah.
I still have the K-Tel record that starts out with Go All the Way from the Raspberries.
Wow.
And the way that kicks off with the dun, 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 and then the harmony after the intro, how they go into it, the harmony, how they that's unique for a song, what they did. And that was, I think, 72 when that came. I believe it was 71. That was 72 when that came out.
In fact, Make Me Lose Control was another song in the 80s that was after Hungry Eyes. Because that was 88 and Hungry Eyes was 87. It actually performed better on the U.S. charts. Make Me Lose Control was reached number 3, and in the U.S. and Hungry Eyes number 4. But I mean, just monster. It's interesting watching artists go through these these different eras.
Yeah.
It's sometimes impossible for them to, go beyond the being kind of, cornered into that original era that they were in. For the Raspberries, after they broke up and he went solo, okay, he's not, cornered into that era anymore. But, with his solo career, it was like, it was ballads. It was, it was radio songs. And
there's also with the Raspberries, you can't forget I Want to Be With You.
Oh yeah.
If I ever hear that, it reminds me of the girl I had a crush on in my senior year.
Yeah, right.
And then Let's Pretend, I also thought was off the Raspberries album in 72, I believe.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because as I got older, I always tell you about that artist I like out of Cleveland. He's retired now, Paul Pope, but my buddy Willie Sullivan used to play with him, and in the Raspberries reunion. Now, who's Willie playing with now? What's his name? Peter Noon.
Oh yeah. Right.
Herman's Hermits.
Right.
If you ever see Herman's Hermits, The guy, the receding hairline with the blonde hair, Billy Sullivan, great guy, salt of the earth guy, and just played with, he's a great guitarist. Great.
Yeah.
And my buddy Paul, they didn't play any music that sounded like oldies at all.
Right.
Even if
right,
they
right.
played an oldie, it didn't sound like it. But
Right.
so he played guitar. If you go and look at the Raspberries reunion back in, what was it, 2012 or 2010 or whatever it was, maybe it was before that even. Their reunion in New York City, Willie's playing guitar. And then when I went to see my buddy Paul in his reunion show, Willie was playing with him, and so was Donnie Kruger. Donnie Kruger was the drummer for Eric Carmen, who came up with the little drum solo in, the in
All by myself.
All by Myself.
Yeah.
And it was funny because they were teasing him, because he was, come on, go play it, go, and they're all from Cleveland,
Right.
All of
it's
them from
kind of
Cleveland.
it's basically it's right before the crescendo of the song.
Yes.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 and he did it, and it was, and then they went into it. He goes boom, 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 and all of a sudden, boom, all by. It was perfect. I get goosebumps doing it because it's not that that's a song that normally would get goosebumps, but you just didn't expect it. It came out of nowhere, and they only played 30 seconds of it. They went into a much heavier rock song, but and there's that Cleveland connection. I mean, you talk about the Raspberries, Eric Carmen, a ton of local musicians, Michael Stanley Band. I mean, all those people from Cleveland are really, really. Joe Walsh, Joe Walsh, all a part
Cleveland
of it.
rocks.
And it's funny because the first bass player in the James Gang was the first bass player for my buddy Paul.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like it's Cleveland. Everybody knows everybody.
Right. Yeah.
When it
right.
When it comes to that. So
yeah.
But sad to hear.
Yeah, it is. It is totally unexpected. Eric Carmen dead at the age of 74. Again, died in his sleep. No cause of death has been mentioned. And so
died this past weekend, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And but great, very long career.
Yeah.
In music.
Yeah. He could, and he probably could have gone out, if he was healthy, and played as Eric Carmen and done. I'm going to assume any rock and roll show would have him playing.
Oh yeah, no. I think he was very. I don't know how late, in terms of lately, and I know things changed during COVID, but he would play live shows.
That's one thing about a rock career. You can hit it real big, and then you're dead for like 10 years. And then you can work for the rest of your life playing all your old hits.
No, there's that lull.
After that 10-year lull or buffer.
It's interesting. There's that lull, and there's different artists. One of my follows on YouTube is Rick Beato, Beato. He's a great producer, professor of music, musician himself. He's written some songs, and he's so great at interviewing artists, and he's got a ton of great interviews on YouTube. Rick Beato, Beato. You should follow him on YouTube, and Rick Beato too, a second channel. And he talks to these artists, and they talk about, Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins was, talking about, okay, you've kind of got that finite period of time. The guys in some of the 80s bands, I remember some of the guys from the band Warrant, which were kind of, they were kind of late in the hair metal, genre, because at that time they were hitting, and they did pretty well. I mean, they were pretty big, for a short period. And then they said, we walked into the record label offices, and I think they said Alice in Chains was up on the wall instead of us. And we knew that things were changing. And, it's interesting because I saw a thing with Jerry Cantrell, and he actually started a lot of his music stuff or spent some of his formative years here in North Texas at the time that I was playing music. And, you look at all of those periods where they go through, okay, there's this huge, they've got this huge following. It's extremely rare that you have a band that comes out and they can just every decade, they just, over and over and over and over again. But when they go through those periods, because you're kind of labeled as, well, that's who they are, grunge, or they're metal, or they're whatever. And then it comes back around, and that retro thing then takes off, and you can play live shows. And
And you see those 80s shows where they bring in, 3 or 4 bands, and there's 6,000-7,000 people.
Right.
It's like, well, you can live on that. You can do that for the rest of your life.
It's crazy.
Oh,
because
some of the outdoor festivals.
They can go. I mean,
know.
they can go, and you don't. The touring is, and my neighbor who is a guitar tech for huge touring acts, James Taylor, Metallica, Springsteen, all these huge names. He's talked to me in the past about how Europe is, and what it's like for the crew, and I've heard from my musician friends the same thing, is that it's it's a little more efficient now. Sometimes crossing a border, in Europe from country to country can be difficult, but you're looking, you're going to get those crowds. Japan has certain artists where that artist shows up and they play a show, then the fans are going to just show up. Mr. Big with Billy Sheehan doing their last tour.
Him,
and they have a huge following in Japan. But you can make a living at it.
Mr. Big, they're playing clubs.
Yeah, right.
They're playing clubs here in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, clubs. They're playing big arenas in Japan.
Yeah,
so.
right. Yeah.
Big in Japan.
Big in Japan.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Leased owner-operators should be aware of 4 common revenue myths, lest you fall into the trap of mistaking revenue for profit. Myth 1, concentrate on increasing revenue because costs will take care of themselves. This is not true, as costs are fundamental to the profit equation and the area where owners exert the most control to improve. Myth 2, more revenue per mile is the answer to all problems. Though carrier pay packages differ in structure, revenue per mile really doesn't change much from company to company. But there can be a big difference in miles, overall gross revenue, reimbursements, and fees. Myth 3, all you have to do to be successful is run a lot of miles. In reality, revenue is only half of the profit equation. Costs are the other half. It's possible to generate a lot of revenue, yet spend $1.10 to make every dollar. Myth 4, you can tell how well you're doing by the size of your settlement check. The settlement check is only a part of the success picture. Miles driven, loads hauled, conditions, mechanical problems, time off, and especially costs all have to be considered. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carmen, and I'm Gary McNamara. We have a no labels party update coming up. It's just
good.
Or
a non-update.
Or as this columnist said, the no candidate party. It was
the no candidate
It's
party.
great because the analysis coming in on it, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Same thing we were saying yesterday. Been around for such a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have a candidate yet? And he goes through the process. Well, normally, you're somebody who's okay. I want to run, and I got to find the party that sort of matches what I believe. Well, nobody knows what the hell they believe.
Exactly.
And so we'll get to that. This story here, 47% of parents still financially support their adult children. CNBC had this yesterday.
The other 53% lie about supporting not supporting their children.
For parents, however, supporting grown children can be a substantial drain at a time when their own retirement security is at risk.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to soaring food and housing costs, millennials and Generation X face other financial challenges their parents did not at that age. Well, okay, what's this here? Not only are their wages lower than their parents' earnings when they were in their 20s and 30s after adjusting for inflation, but they are also carrying larger student loan balances, recent reports show. So, how much are parents shelling out on average? If they have a child, 18 or older, I believe this is for each child, $1,384 a month.
Wow. No. That's my full assessment on that. No.
Eric, could you please give your detailed assessment of the story that I just read?
That's it. No. My gosh. Nearly $1,400 a month? No.
Well, if I was a parent giving that to my child, my house would be spotless, the lawn would be taken care of, there'd be a new addition to the house they would be building.
Yeah, exactly.
About to trigger somebody right now. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Carmen. Gary, download our app today, Red Eye Radio app, and you can listen when and where you want in case you can't listen live overnight, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, thank you.
Looking at this study here, this survey here, 47% of parents still financially support their adult children. $1,384 a month.
No. How about no?
Is the average.
Yeah. That's the average.
Yes, compared with parents at this age, Gen Zers are more likely to have a college degree and work full-time, particularly women. 61% of adult children still living at home don't contribute to household expenses at all.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you do.
Interesting here because they write this here that not only are their wages lower than their parents' earnings when they were in their 20s and 30s, so you're assuming the parents then are like 40 or 45.
Well, in there, you could just add 20 to 25 years on top of the whatever age group you're talking about.
Okay, 18.
So 45
starting
to
at 18, so let's say they're 20 living at home, then you could say 45 to 50.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So that would be people that really entered the workforce in the 80s or 90s, because I don't remember salaries being great in the 70s when I first got in the workforce.
Right. Yeah. No, good point.
I was always working, like I said, during college, I worked 2 jobs. Yeah. And then after college, when I lived with my parents, I was still working 2 jobs, a full-time and a part-time job.
Well, that's the thing is that, actually, you make a very good point because the timing here would be, the qualifier would be different because you started in the workforce before or during that last massive inflation rise.
Actually, I was sort of in the beginning because really in 72 is when I got on the workforce.
Because they're saying
my first job in college.
Because they use it adjusted
in high school.
Yeah, they use adjusted for inflation here is my point. So if you adjusted for that inflation and then adjusted for the inflation here over the last few years.
Yeah, then you may have a point.
You know what I mean? It depends on, again, where that qualifier is, that they're not making as much as their parents were when they were that age if you adjust for inflation. Look, watching what's happened in other countries over the last few decades is very interesting. One thing that's happened in Japan with the economy there is that you have multi-generations living under one roof, and it became more of the norm. It became very common. I think it's becoming more common here in the States for a number of reasons. There's the caregiver part of it. That's, not what's going on here for for the most part. But then there is of course, the underlying economic part of it. And being able to afford a car, auto insurance, your apartment, or wherever you're going to, rent space, and, and then, of course, you got to eat almost every day, from what I understand. And all of those things combined, cost of living through the roof. And so if you're just fresh out of college or, in that age group, then it's going to be one of those things. How many roommates can you get? Well, your best roommates quite often are mom and dad.
When I got into the workforce, because I believe the minimum wage changed that year, my first hourly wage was $1.60 an hour.
Yeah, wow.
And then it went up to $1.85.
What year? 74?
72.
72?
Yeah. Because it changed. It went from somewhere. But I remember my first check that I got would have been $1.60 an hour. And then it went up a couple months later because I raised it to $1.85. And then I remember when that was in high school. And then when I got to college, I got the job at the bank. I'll never forget. I got the job at the bank, and it was like, okay, we've got 2 jobs for you. One is in the mailroom, and it pays like $1.90 an hour, and the other one would be adjustments, and that's $3.40 an hour. And I said, well, I'll take adjustments. Oh, and they said $3.40 an hour plus 50 cents for shift differential because we worked second shift.
Yeah, okay.
Well, my God, then in my mind, it's like, well, instead of $1.80, I'm making over double minimum wage. I have no experience. I said, yeah, absolutely. Give me adjustments. All right, well, you're going to have a meeting. And so I'm getting ready to walk out, and I went, oh, what in the world's, what's adjustments? I have no idea. I just like, they go, bill collector. Oh God, no. But I couldn't back out.
Right. Yeah. And they knew that, that's why we call it adjustments.
Yes, exactly. Adjustments.
Yeah. When I started, minimum wage was $3.10, and the next year it went up to $3.35. And man, I thought I was in heaven. I'm sorry, you're going to pay me that every hour? Okay. How many hours can I get? And then time and a half if they offered overtime. Time and a half? Yes.
I got the job in May, and so college had just ended, and so we actually went full-time. I actually went full-time because we worked full-time during the summer, and then during the school year part-time. They knew that they were hiring college kids to do it.
Right.
And found out years later, it's like, well, why did you hire me? I'll never forget talking to my old boss. Well, didn't you notice everybody around you, including me? We hire odd personalities. Because the average person doesn't want to do this.
Right.
So we find the outcast. And I burst out laughing, and I look at everybody who worked there, and they've all been successful.
Yeah.
But they were all independent people. They were all of us were just a little bit off. In our own, you couldn't say these are normal people. Everybody was going for it.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody had goals, and it was a fun place to work. There was a lot of camaraderie.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Right.
It was tough because there were some tough times in the 70s when you're trying to collect bills. But it wasn't. We weren't where very rarely. Because you have the old stereotype of a bill collector, swearing at somebody, I'll repossess your house. You never really said it that way. I don't think I ever yelled at anybody. A couple of people I know did. I never did. Maybe I got loud once and said, hey, don't talk to me like that or whatever. But, most people, if they realize you'd let them pay interest for a couple of months.
Right. Give them options.
Right.
That's
you give them options
thing to do. Yeah, is
to do
give
it.
them options.
And most people, as I said, the people that were hardest to collect were the ones that probably at that point were making. Because the average salary in 74 probably was what, 12,000, 13,000 a year.
Wow.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And so it was people that might be making 40 to 80,000. Those were the people that, because there were separate line of credits that they gave to people that, were making more money.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the people that were making 50, 60,000 back then, which probably would be, 150,000 now?
Yeah. Probably.
They thought they were making $1 million.
They spent like they were making $1 million?
Yes, very rarely did I ever have problems collecting from somebody who was just regular middle class or below middle class salaries.
It's. I think you and I had the same issue with the movie. Was it Company Men? Company Men with Ben Affleck.
Oh yeah. Good movie though.
It's a great movie. I love the movie. Kevin Costner.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's spending too much.
Oh, yeah.
Ben Affleck's character.
Yeah.
And it was like he's got all this stuff and he's making $150,000 a year.
Yeah, I think it was 150, 160, something like that.
He's got like he belongs to a golf club. I forget what they said his house was worth. And, because he was going to be laid off and they were trying to, downsize or whatever.
Like immediately.
Yeah.
Everything had to be cut totally. And it's like, oh, boy.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, you were way overspending your salary, and, but that's the case with a lot of people. They get into that. And you and I have known some people in finance that have told us, man, they didn't give us names or specifics, but they said you'd be shocked at how many people just live that shell of a life.
Well, I remember you remember the story. I'm not going to say the guy's name, but the realtor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This guy, or excuse me, the finance guy.
Yeah.
This guy, mortgage guy. This guy gets you, any place, anywhere. Good guy.
Really great guy.
Really great
company.
Guy. Yeah. But, very aggressive. And I actually was doing, when I did my local show here, I was doing commercials for him. Well, he invited me out golfing one time. We went to this beautiful country club that he belonged to. Mm-hmm. Now, he runs his own company. He wasn't, I'm not saying he was overspending, but he told me all the time, he said, all these people that live in mansions, you'd be amazed how many have no furniture in it.
Right.
And I went, come on.
Yeah, it's a shell.
And this is like probably 2001, 2002, 2003. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting there and we're along. There's these $1 million mansions.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there waiting. He goes, come on. Because I know these people. We can go back. They know me. They're not home. Let's go back. We actually were looking in the windows. I'm going, oh, my God, this is Texas. I'm going to get killed. He goes, no, you got to look in. I want to prove my point. We looked in. Empty. Places there's no furniture.
Right.
He goes, people way over purchase. It's like, remember when I was going to buy my house and I came in and I go, Eric, they said, I qualify for a $90 million home.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
right.
Well, that would take 3 times what I earn. How can I qualify for that?
My wife and I, when we bought the house we're in now, almost 20 years ago, same thing. They said, here's what you qualify for. But by the way, it was that same person. It was that same mortgage person.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he says, here's what you qualify for. And he kind of smiled at me because he knows me. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, yeah, no.
No, yeah.
I'm not going to get into that habit.
You put it into monthly payments, it's like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
But 61% of adult children still living at home don't contribute at all. 58% of parents said they've sacrificed their own financial security in their later years for the sake of their adult children. A jump of 37% from just a year earlier.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, look, with inflation just crushing everything, the weight of the cost of living, and it's the whole thing, it's the entire thing. It's food, utilities, car, insurance for the car, rent, all of it. I mean, being crushed by inflation. Then this doesn't surprise me because I don't know. My wife and I, we shake our heads saying, man, what do our grandkids do? My oldest grandchild will be 19 in June. Now, she's already living. She's renting a room from another family member. But when she's really on her own, I don't know.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carmen, and I'm Gary McNamara. One thing that I wonder, because they talked about young kids with college debt, when will that change? When will there be a major decrease? There has been a decrease. The only increase in colleges is 4-year private colleges. Now,
Right.
those all on
Right.
the online colleges? Because it's cheaper? Is that why that's increasing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Everyone else
Maybe.
is down. You know what's down the most? 2-year colleges. Down drastically. I mean, down like 20% over since pre-COVID. You look at some of those numbers, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Because when are people finally going to say the return on the investment for college just isn't there? Traditional college just isn't there anymore. Just not there.
Right.
And you're not learning anything that will get you a job in the real world.
Well, that's it. If you're looking for a career and you're saying this is where I want, like one of my granddaughters wants to get into law. So she knows, okay, this is the path I have to go down. One wants to get into healthcare, and now she's thinking nursing, actually. And so those are very specific, goals in terms of career goals. I think the day of, I'm just going to get a degree and kind of figure it out as I go along are probably behind us soon.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm just looking here at the lead editorial in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
Biden offers a budget fantasy. It's not going to happen. That's the thing. Everybody sort of dismissed it. $7.3 trillion, up $1.1 trillion over 2 years, 18%.
Yeah. Might as well be $73 trillion.
You know the only thing that really takes a cut?
Military spending.
Military spending. Yeah, if index for inflation. The only thing that really takes a cut is that. And you just look at and I know they went through all the ridiculous things that are in this budget here that are billions. But when you're talking about a budget like this, a couple of billion is like worrying about nickel or worrying about pennies. But you still should worry about them because it's not what the federal government should be involved in. But also $5.5 trillion in tax increases. I've been around a long time. And it's the same arguments over and over again. And it's the same dumb arguments from the left. And they're obvious answers from the right. And there's been these answers, the same debate going on for over 50 years. And it's like we don't learn.
No.
We just don't learn.
No.
And we've stated this since the State of the Union address last week where the president was talking about corporations. Are Americans really that big? Are we really that big of idiots? Are we really? Because even Republicans now, you see Josh Hawley doesn't want corporations to have the same free speech because of the profit motive.
Right.
When did we all become complete idiots when it comes to anything dealing with economics? How can we be so stupid as a nation where you believe that if a corporation is taxed, you punish the corporation and you don't punish the consumer. How are we such idiots in the United States of America not our audience, of course. But how can you be such an idiot not to understand that when the Democrats throw at you that the corporations are greedy and you can somehow punish them and you end up punishing yourself? How can we be such big idiots? And I say this because it's year after year, decade after decade, promoting the same false things about corporations and about business in general.
One of the greatest plays you can make politically is to get the uninformed to the polls. And how do you do it? By keeping that misinformation flowing in a populist way, by creating that sense of anger, jealousy, whatever it is that is the drive behind such idiotic statements as we need to raise taxes on corporations. Corporations don't pay taxes. The consumer does.
And we all know it because we all deal with gasoline prices. Why are so many, and I'll say the majority are Democrats, but why are so many Democrats willing to demonize unfairly corporations in order to tax them more, which is a stealth tax on themselves?
Right.
Why do Democrats wish to punish themselves, or are Democrats, excuse my language here, but I have to say it, are you such idiots where you can't understand you're being conned by the people that you vote for? That you end up paying the stealth tax and it hurts the poor and the lower middle class economically the most?
You're either completely ignorant to the facts or you're part of the lie. And you're okay with spreading the lie even further.
And I want to go back here because this is the whole thing that shrinkflation was caused by corporate greed, yet nobody can define what corporate greed is. Nobody can define, well, they need to pay their fair share. Nobody can define fair share. Nobody can define what corporate greed is. Yet they say it each and every day in order to, they believe, punish the corporation, which in a stealth way is punishing themselves. And these politicians laugh. And so many of these people, what I'm hoping is maybe the switch is these people are going more Republican because they finally figured this out.
Right.
And I want to play, this is an oldie but goodie. We haven't played this audio cut in years.
Oh, okay.
You know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw somebody post it the other day, and it's the late economist Milton Friedman.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I started thinking the other day, because I can't think of the series that he did back in I think it was the 70s, on capitalism and everything else, but do you remember when that used to be Thomas Sowell and him would tag team?
Yeah.
The liberals?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that was popcorn time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because they just, and everything from really the last person who could really go out there, and you would have Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell out there, and they would be talking about why tariffs are bad.
Right.
And it's like, good, you're explaining it right. You're explaining it right. You're explaining it right. You're explaining it right.
Mm-hmm.
That's gone today.
Yeah, it is.
It
is.
There really isn't. There is nobody. And Milton Friedman did it in a very, very simple way, explained everything so everybody could understand it.
Right.
But this is where this goes back. This is 1979, just so people know, when he was on the Phil Donahue show. And Phil Donahue brought up all the things about corporate greed and greed in general. Here we go.
Okay. When you see around the globe the maldistribution of wealth, the desperate plight of millions of people in underdeveloped countries, when you see so few haves and so many have-nots, when you see the greed and the concentration of power within, did you ever have a moment of doubt about capitalism and whether greed's a good idea to run on?
Well, first of all, tell me, is there some society you know that doesn't run on greed? You think Russia doesn't run on greed? You think China doesn't run on greed? What is greed? Of course, none of us are greedy. It's only the other fellow who's greedy. The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't construct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Henry Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry that way. In the only cases in which the masses have escaped from the kind of grinding poverty you're talking about, the only cases in recorded history are where they have had capitalism and largely free trade. If you want to know where the masses are worst off, it's exactly in the kinds of societies that depart from that. So that the record of history is absolutely crystal clear that there is no alternative way so far discovered of improving the lot of the ordinary people that can hold a candle to the productive activities that are unleashed by a free enterprise system.
But it seems to reward not virtue as much as ability to manipulate the system.
And what does reward virtue? You think the communist commissar rewards virtue? You think a Hitler rewards virtue? You think, excuse me, if you'll pardon me, do you think American presidents reward virtue? Do they choose their appointees on the basis of the virtue of the people appointed or on the basis of their political clout? Is it really true that political self-interest is nobler somehow than economic self-interest? You know, I think you're taking a lot of things for granted. And just tell me where in the world you find these angels who are going to organize society for us. Well, I don't even trust you to do that.
And that's just a little sliver. If you don't know who Milton Friedman is, you should go to YouTube and check him out sometime because when he died, like 2002 or something like that. But he was able to explain it. But what I love is where he talks about, because we're dealing with it right now. What makes political self-interest that you saw from Biden more moral than economic self-interest of companies?
Right.
What makes it more moral? Nobody ever delves into these questions.
No.
What makes political interest more moral? We've seen where politics have taken us. We've seen the debt that we've put on our children. We've seen the lies that come from government that if you attempted to do, if a corporate head did what Biden did on the lies that they promoted, they'd all be in jail.
Mm-hmm.
If you ran a business economically like the government does, and I'll say the Biden administration, with the lies and the misinformation across the board on every topic, you'd be in jail.
Yep. And if you listen to the premise of the question here by Phil Donahue, so many haves and have-nots, they use the word have, not earned. And they're careful to phrase it that way. They want you to believe, and they talk, and he says, wealth maldistribution. Like there's someone just rewarding them on a whim. Right.
The
we're going to
is
send
wrong.
this. The premise is entirely wrong.
Right.
When you introduce the word earned, that's what changes. Earned. And you may say, well, that athlete isn't worth $100 million contract. Well, if the team thinks he is, then he gets it. That person shouldn't get $20 million a movie. Well, if the studio agrees to pay him that, that's what they get. And you don't have to go watch the movie. You don't have to go watch the ball game. You don't have to do any of that. You're free to choose where you're going to spend your money. That person shouldn't. But the moment you ask those same people, man, what would you do if you won the lottery? Oh, man, I would. It starts to change. Well, you use the word earned because you work for it. You gain something. That goes beyond any winnings you might have. There are plenty of people that were in the right place at the right moment, no doubt. But if you look at the work ethic of the wealthiest people in society, in capitalism, these people have a work ethic that you could take, and we've done this before. You break it down.
Yeah, you see the billionaires are always working.
You take it, and it's like, and everybody's, well, why did they keep working? Why do they keep working? Warren Buffett's 93, whatever he is. Why does he keep working? Why didn't he just retire? This is their drive. This is what they do. The money is a big part of it, but they're not saying, I'm doing this to get money. They're doing it to get results. And there's a difference. That's a big difference. You're doing the work. And you can say, well, I disagree with this or I disagree with that. And then, Donahue, it's about manipulating the system. It's a free market system that requires failure along the way, including the failure of many people, including people like Warren Buffett.
If the private industry manipulated the system like the government does,
mm-hmm.
You look at the Fed policy, for example,
mm-hmm.
and keeping interest rates low, artificially low,
right?
Trying to manipulate what's going on, the manipulation of the system. Everything. Look at the mortgage market, the debacle that caused. Look at all the things that government did to destroy people's lives that no corporation could ever come close to doing.
Right.
And so one of the most important questions that Friedman asked that people should ask themselves, why do I believe that the political self-interest, knowing we can see the history of what the politicians have done, is a higher morality than economic self-interest?
Right.
Why? Because they say they wish to do good?
Right. Because they talk a certain way?
Because what is it?
Because they promise certain things?
Because that's one of the biggest falsehoods out there. In fact, looking at government, as I do, government is the cost of doing business.
Right.
They don't add any wealth.
Right.
Government simply uses what the private sector produces.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And when I say produce, I mean the legitimate profits. We've talked about this many times, that if companies lied the way that politicians lied, they'd all be out of business.
Right.
All of them would be gone.
The border is secure. Inflation is transitory.
Right.
All these things. Yeah.
And
not that there aren't lies in the private sector, but when it happens, you'll see a response to it.
Well, the accountability is so much greater, and the fact is these people have to produce things that work each and every day. They cannot sell defaulty products. For example, look at the hell that Boeing's going through right now.
Oh, my gosh.
And look at it. And by the way, as we said, the whole thing with DEI, and we said, look, that's all going to end when it starts interfering with the production of quality products to the American consumer.
Yep.
And you're seeing the beginning of it now. I didn't think it was going to start with Boeing, and I don't know how much of it's actually true or not. We'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not in a good situation where they're saying, well, they're not hiring the best people to build these planes. They're trying to fill quotas. Well, when you're talking about an airplane and you haven't, I don't know whether there are more incidents out there right now or just more incidents being reported because now this is being highlighted.
Right.
The whole DEI thing.
Right.
But the fact is, the scrutiny that Boeing's going to go under now is way over if the government screws you over. Hundreds of billions of dollars was lost during COVID. Anybody held accountable for it?
No.
Hundreds of billions of dollars gone to fraud.
Right.
We're never going to find out.
Nope.
There's no real investigation of it.
Nope.
And if there is, it's like, well, it just disappeared into the, well, are we going to change it next time?
Right.
There's no accountability. There's no consequences in government.
Nope.
And we sit there and we believe, oh, government is so much better. They need to regulate business. We might be better off if business regulated government.
Exactly.
The plutocracy might be the way to go.
Exactly. Well,
I'm being a little bit sarcastic there.
But pointing out the very real accountability in the private sector. In the public sector, say what you want. Do what you want. It's not your money you're spending.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carmen. I'm Gary McNamara. I just looked up just to make sure I had it in front of me here, just to make the next point. I looked up greed, the definition of greed.
Mm-hmm.
Intense and selfishness of let me hold on 1 second here. Intense and being selfish for something is what it is.
Okay.
Hang on. Let me just do it again here. Here it is. Intense and selfish desire for something.
Okay.
okay?
All right.
So what's more selfish? Any company producing a product and selling it in the marketplace where someone buys it voluntarily and the company or business wishes to sell more of those to make more of a profit where everything is done voluntarily. All right, so you take that, that's the definition. Somewhere in there is a definition of greed for many Americans. Then you look at the fact that we are borrowing money from future generations without their approval. That they're going to have to pay our debt for what we want now. So you tell me what's more greedy. The American public wanting what they want now. You and I played, Trump was on CNBC this morning, or yesterday morning on Squawk Box, and they asked about Social Security. They said, look, these things have to be reformed. And he goes, and some things will have to be cut. He goes, well, there are a lot of things to look at, including cuts. Biden administration went nuts because Trump has said we won't touch Social Security. And Biden's now trying to say, see what Biden is selling. And the Republicans, and Trump was selling when he was saying no changes. He's not saying that now. He didn't say it yesterday. He may reverse himself today on it because there was such a blowback on it. But if you say that Social Security and Medicare will not be reformed in any way, well, then you've got to borrow that money from future generations. Anybody ask them? That, to me, is sort of really the definition of selfishness. No taxation without representation.
Right.
Well, except if they're not born yet, then we'll screw them over big time.
Yeah.
But that's not selfish. Corporations are.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carmen, and I'm Gary McNamara. I will say this, though, with the way the media hit back. I mean, they were following the talking points of Biden. Just understand that now everything Trump says will be magnified 1 billion times.
Yep.
I saw some loyal Trump supporters. I can't remember what it was here in the last 48 hours. Trump said something somewhere, and they were just furious.
Mm-hmm.
They were just like, stop giving ammunition to the left.
Yeah.
And it's basically the same advice we've given Trump. Forget about the Oscars. Forget about anything that doesn't matter. Stick to all the major issues where the American public agrees with you. You don't need to be sarcastic. You don't need to curse. You don't need to get angry. You can be passionate about it, but hit all those issues and you'll win. If you don't, and we've said this over and over again, I mean, there's great optimism, the same kind of optimism you saw in 2020, but Trump draws more people to rallies. That doesn't matter.
That doesn't win you an election.
Right. That does not win you an election. I've covered enough of them. It may make you feel good. It means diddly and squat.
Right now, the battle is on, and it has been now since Super Tuesday a week ago. The battle is on for the middle, for the center, the independents.
And so Trump gave the right answer on Social Security when he said, look, there are a lot of things we have to look to. He didn't argue with them. He didn't say, it was a blunt question. The folks at Squawk Box are going to be, they're going to be blunt. Look, we can't continue with these entitlements. We all know it. It can't continue to happen. We can't sit there and say, you can't cut Social Security and Medicare ever. Everything must remain the same. Something has to change. And Trump was saying, yeah, it does. And you'd have to look into, what possible cuts are. As soon as he did it, the Democrats went nuts. Because you saw yesterday, if you want to know what greed really is, you've seen it with this president since he started attacking corporations for shrinkflation. First off, your monetary policy caused this.
Yep.
the absolute insane borrowing during COVID is what caused it. You continued to do it. You were warned by liberal economists. Don't do this. This is going to put inflation over the top. You did it anyway. Yep. And then the consequences started coming in, and you were denying that the consequences were actually happening.
Right.
So you were lying to the American public, and the whole administration was. Everybody was. We were laughing. I'm not an economist. I don't have the experience that Janet Yellen has in economics. Neither do you. We were right. She was wrong. It doesn't matter. You can figure the lies were so blunt. So they're lying to you about inflation, which hits you every single day. They didn't care about that. Why? They want to have political power, and they believe that they can lie to you about your finances. Well, that sounds greedy to me. I want to stay in power. And then Biden decides, after he causes inflation, to lie to the American public to make it sound like shrinkflation is something different than inflation. So then he can say the greedy corporations are responsible for it. So then he can sell you to raise their taxes, which then will be a stealth tax and actually hurt you.
Yeah.
Well, that's greed. In order for him to stay in power, that's greed. That's the definition of the selfishness of greed right there. And many of you are buying into the fact, oh, no, it's the corporations. The government and Biden are all telling me the truth because they care about me. I mean, how gullible. What suckers are we as Americans to go to not deal with this and not fight back and say, stop BSing us?
The problem, as identified, is that corporations are raising the cost per volume. So the solution is raise the cost even further through higher taxation.
Right, exactly. Which will then hurt you. But he's hoping you're stupid enough. He's going, these people are idiots. I can sell them anything. I can actually hurt them in their budget, and they'll still vote for me because they still are under the delusion that politicians care and corporations are greedy. Well, we've just laid it out, what selfishness is.
Well, and this idea that because through taxation, it is a one of these hidden costs. It is we don't, in fact, at all when it comes to corporate taxes. It's not like sales tax. It's a hidden cost that's not on that receipt.
Yep.
It should be. Remember the credit card holders' Bill of Rights? We want the taxpayers' receipt Bill of Rights. It would be separate from the other. So they break it down to the entire cost of government. Remember that when they did, where was it? Was it in Philly? And they were doing the soda tax?
Yeah.
And then the store owners started putting up there, well, your case of soda is now $25, and here's why. And then the local regulators, the local lawmakers were saying, you can't do that. You can't tell them. How dare you tell them?
Well, and what is it? What is the tax where they tax it at every level of production?
VAT.
The VAT tax. And that's why we were against the VAT tax, because government, especially liberals, would love to get a stealth tax on everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the thing, and that's the other thing of BSing. These liberals are so greedy that they'll lie to you about the fact that the corporate tax actually taxes you and raises your prices, and then you throw a VAT tax on them. You mean we can have a hidden tax? Every level of production, we will put a tax on it. We'll put a tax on it. And so you just get the final cost.
Right.
And they're so big on, well, we need the transparency of itemizing. Let's not itemize on taxes. We don't want to itemize.
Right.
And Democrats are looking at it going, we can convince these suckers Americans are suckers and Democrats are suckers. That's what they're saying. Because they're still able to sell the biggest economic and tax lie out there that has been around since I've been covering politics almost a half century.
Right.
It's the same things out there that we're going to tax those evil corporations and you'll be able to get back at them. And all they do is pass the cost on to you.
Right.
Because they've got to make a profit.
Well,
and as
they're greedy. And now you're going to raise the costs. You're going to raise their costs through taxation. Well, they won't be greedy then.
Yeah.
How does that work? All of a sudden, the greed switch turns off because there's a new tax, a higher taxation on them, on the corporation.
And when they propose the VAT tax, when they propose the when they propose increasing the corporate tax, and the claim is we're going after the rich, we're going after those rich corporations, and they're not. They're going after the masses.
They get their money from you.
Right.
This is where they get all of their earnings. It comes from you.
Right. The masses buy way more. When you talk about overall corporate taxes across the board, the masses, the 99%, not the 1%, but the 99% buy way more of the products. They're trying to claim that we're punishing the rich, and they're actually coming after you.
Oh, yeah.
That's selfishness. We're lying to the people to get their money because we believe they're a bunch of idiots who can't even figure out 1 + 1 = 2.
Right. We'll create a big bad guy, and which we've done before. This is an old game. This is out of an old playbook from an old guy.
And then they borrow ungodly amounts of money.
Yep.
And put the bill for what we want today on the backs of our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. And they sell it as something that is morally correct when this nation was formed on taxation without representation. And here we are. We found the loophole. We can be the ultimate selfish people on the planet.
Right.
We can be more selfish than other countries because our economy is bigger, and so we can borrow more and put it on the backs of people not born yet, and we feel good about ourselves. And, hey, by the way, those corporations who voluntarily sell a product that you voluntarily buy in a marketplace, they're the greedy ones, and I'm above board, and how dare they be so evil?
Right. I'm going to save you from their greed.
Yeah.
My greed's going to save you from their greed. Had to rephrase it properly.
It's just amazing. And it's
why not rack up your personal debt so that the debt of your estate when you're gone is passed on to your children and grandchildren? How about that?
Well, that may be an idea.
$200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. Go crazy. Would you want that? Is the question. I'm hearing a resounding no.
But hey, the left talks greed, the left talks fair share. They'll throw out the slogans, they'll throw out the memes, but they never ever wish to actually have a discussion on it, do they?
No, they don't.
Never.
They don't.
They never actually want to delve in and say, "Wait a minute, who really is greedy in this country?"
Right.
Where does the greed really come from?
Right.
Because greed is selfishness.
Right.
Greed is not, whether I have a small business or a large corporation, I sell a product, people voluntarily buy it. I'm happy, they're happy.
And when they succeed, oh, man, we need to tear that down and break their company up.
And that's greed, but the selfishness of politicians lying to you to put a stealth tax through business by calling them greedy, yet they're greedy. And you know how? What are the signs of greed? Lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
Letting you believe the corporations are being punished when it's a stealth tax. And it is not something that hits the rich. It's something that hits everybody.
And they're doing it on a promise, and the return for them is their own benefit politically.
Politically, exactly. They want to stay in power. The
Right.
ultimate in greed. I just wonder when did Americans become such big suckers? When did liberals, when did you become the biggest suckers on the planet where you'll vote somebody in who lies to you
And wants to control everything of your life.
and wants to make your life more expensive and lies to you about it.
Right.
You want greed? Joe Biden is the perfect example of greed. Tell me where I'm wrong.
And we haven't even brought up the whole foreign entity and money flow and Hunter and James Biden.
Oh,
thing.
no, we haven't brought it. Yeah, their own
that's
personal greed.
Right. That's a personal part of it.
Right. Yeah, that's no big deal. We're not going to pay attention to that one.
Yeah. Yeah. You want greed. Everybody looks at this, and we've built this jealousy, this envy. They shouldn't have that. Don't use the word have. Use the word earned.
Earned. Can't do that.
No.
Changes the whole context.
Changes the entire.
Well, the whole thing in promoting greed, if you're going to promote, if you are greedy, you will do anything. You'll lie, you'll cheat. If you're really greedy, we've seen what greed is
Right.
in the politicians to remain in power.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't think Americans would ever be this big of a sucker to let it go on for this long.
Yeah.
Unless a significant portion of them are also greedy.
Everybody, again, who's
and
not
says,
greedy?
And says, hey, we can pass this on to future generations.
Right. As long as I get mine.
Right.
Don't cut my benefits.
Put it on our children and grandchildren. Don't cut what I want today.
Right.
Have somebody in the future suffer. I won't be here. I don't see you. I don't hear you. Therefore, I'm not greedy.
As long as I don't have to deal with it, everything's fine.
86690 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carmen. I'm Gary McNamara. All right, I've calmed down.
Well, we're at a point where it's not going to be about whether or not there will be cuts. It's going to be how deep the cuts will be.
Yeah.
And there will be pain across the board. It's not going to be what they call the haircut, everything across. I mean, a haircut implies everything across the top. Well, it's going to be everything to a significant level at some point.
Not next year.
No, it's not going to happen. Yeah, not going to happen next year.
We had not addressed the president lately talking about corporate greed. So it's like every once in a while we have to sit there and go, what is greed? What's the definition? And who's really greedy? Is it corporations where everything's done voluntarily?
Right.
Or is it the government who lies to you? And gave the example of corporate taxes that will hit the poor and the middle class the hardest.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me see. Got this message here. You guys are wrong. Milton Friedman said corporations are supposed to be greedy. He did not say that.
Nope.
So I don't know. I don't know what you were listening to. He did not say that in that audio cut from 1979. So you heard it wrong. He was comparing and using the language of Phil Donahue, stating, "Fine, then, if you're going to look at it and say if corporations are greedy, then let's look at political greed versus and tell me which one is worse, and that's where he went. But he did not say that corporations are supposed to be greedy, because by the definition, as we have stated, of greed to begin with, which is selfishness.
Yeah.
And actually an intense selfishness.
Right.
And that's where, again, you're not going to be able to win that one. Intense and selfish desire for something. Producing a product and selling it voluntarily to people who wish to buy it voluntarily, who negotiate a price, or a price is there and they negotiate by walking out and buying it somewhere else.
Yep.
In no way fits the definition of greed.
No.
And by corporations stating we have a fiduciary responsibility by law to serve our shareholders, who are the ones that finance the entire corporation, that we have a responsibility to keep profits good. And so we pass the cost on to the consumer, that they can either buy or not buy voluntarily, is not the definition of greed by any way.
No.
There is no selfish desire for something. Selling a legitimate product and reaching your goal. Salespeople, when they reach their goal, I got to 100%. Well, okay. I've got another week left in the month. Let me get to 130% of what my goal is. Sorry, that's greedy. The company set the goal at 100%. You should stick with that.
Well, and then you start deciding somebody else. It's like the word fair. Who decides what is fair? Fair is decided between any of the parties who have any interest in that equation. Yet we want to stand outside of that equation and say, oh, no, that's not fair to me. That's not fair that organization pays that person that much money. Well, in capitalism overall, we can decide how far we want to participate. We vote with our dollar every day. And it can be between different brands. Remember the fallout from Home Depot? When it came out that the CEO at the time, or the outgoing CEO at the time, was making a certain amount of money. And there was just this fallout, and people were outraged. Well, the board actually looked at it, and the incoming CEO, what they did is they redesigned a package that was comparable to their competitor, Lowe's, and other retailers. Now, that's likely because they felt, look, our products are the working class. And they're looking at this in a certain way. This could affect sales, and I think it did at some point to a certain degree. We're going to take a different approach in hiring a CEO. That's all of that dynamic in play, including the consumer's ability to walk away, which we can do. I've done it a lot, and so have you. When you look at it and say, whoa, my homeowner's insurance, we've been talking about, you and I have been covering it for a while, but the cost of insurance, homeowners and auto insurance and everything else going through the roof. And we know what the percentages are on the average and everything else. And my now former homeowner's insurance provider wanted to raise it 84%. I said, no. And I walked away. I found a much better deal with the same coverage. I shopped around. We can do that with any product. Now, sometimes you're in a situation where, oh, man, I got to have this now. Well, you're paying for the convenience. I've got to have, I don't have the time. Again, the convenience is part of the factor, and we factor that in. In fact, there's a whole chain of stores, an industry known as convenience stores. You don't have to walk 2 miles to get to the milk. You come in, you grab it. Oh, by the way, while you're also fueling up, and then, boom, you go, yeah, you're going to pay more for it, and we know that. But we're paying for the convenience. There are things where we assign the value. That gets back to that word fair. Well, what's fair? What's fair? Well, Gary's inside the airport, now inside the security zone in the secure part of the airport. He's
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, you can't. As a seasoned traveler, most people know
$4.35 for a bottled water.
Yeah, which you could have, if you could have brought it from home. Well, gosh, you could have filled one of those sports bottles at home, right, out of your tap, and it would have been a couple of pennies at the most, and then brought it. Well, no, that's not allowed. So you get through into that zone. You want water? Oh, that's going to cost you.
Right. Now, they do have the free water, but
right.
But a lot of people would say, well, I'd rather trust the bottle than what's coming out of the public fountain.
Well, it's, I don't know the last time I saw anybody use a fountain. Oh, I do.
Yeah, people bring their water bottles in.
I saw, not drinking it, but a mom go over and quickly wet like a napkin or something for her toddler. But we can assess what is fair or not. And by the way, you could also choose, well, you know what, I'm going to go without water, maybe until I get on the plane. And then the plane is probably going to serve drinks, and I'll get a water when I get on the plane. Whatever. We can make that assessment. We can plan accordingly. And sometimes if we don't do the planning, we're kind of caught in that situation where I got to have it now, and we pay for that convenience. Again, what is the word fair? And we say, well, they should be paying their fair share. Who are you to say?
Yeah.
Who are you to say what they should be paying? And I know we have tax code, and our tax code is written by our representatives, and that's part of that process. But when you say they should be paying, well, you're not in that situation, are you? Have you ever been in that situation? Do you even know what they pay now? Do you understand dollars, in terms of dollars?
Well, that's why Biden
pay.
in his speech, that's why they put the lie in that billionaires only pay 8%.
Right. It's
garbage. That was a lie.
Absolutely false.
Right.
And they have to lie
that was a lie.
in order to get their point across. They've been lying about it for years.
You sell your greed by the victim oppressor mindset.
Right. They're selling
that you're a victim and they're getting away with it. So you sell that lie. It's like
you create fake greed.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders sells that lie all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Look, Occupy Wall Street was successful in selling that selfish lie.
Yeah. And by the way, Bernie used to say the words millionaires and billionaires. Now he only says billionaires because he himself is a millionaire.
Well, I mean, the lie was sold. You and I remember the one time we got the call from the student at UCLA, saying that it's the billionaire's fault.
Right.
That college is so expensive for her. We went, wow, that came straight from Bernie Sanders and Occupy Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
And so that kind of, number one, blaming. You blame someone. You find the oppressor who isn't an oppressor in order to justify your selfishness.
Right.
Because corporations, everything is voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is voluntary.
Yep. Everybody now is looking at, okay, look at all these billionaires. Jeff Bezos, a prime example. Probably, I don't know how much, I can't quantify what items I disagree with him on politically.
Oh, just read the Washington Post tomorrow morning.
They put his memo out every day. He owns it, for those that don't know.
Yeah, right.
And so, but you look at they want to bring down Amazon. It's we need to blah blah blah. Well, that's about working conditions and everything else. And it's okay. Well, that's an attempt to build union. We see that. You and I have been doing this a long time. And then but it's blah 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 blah. Yep. Do you buy Prime? Yes. Okay, what are you paying for? And this is something you go through every year. Yourself, you will sit and assess it. Okay, is it worth that much? Do I need free shipping? Do I need it to be there between 4 and 8 a.m.? And these are the things, again, you pay for these conveniences, and then he throws in the whole Prime Video thing on top of that. And, you look at it and then everybody, well, he's got blah, 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 and all this money that he's got. Who was screaming? No. Who was crying for him when he was working out of his garage selling books? Nobody. We need to give that guy a lot of money. He has his service, and either you benefit from it or you don't. You decide that. It may be a point where there is that threshold, where there's so much competition from Walmart or any given retailer or any other delivery service where you say to yourself, and I noticed DoorDash. I ordered a shirt from DoorDash. The other day, I ordered a sheet set for a bed for in the guest room on DoorDash. They're competing in big ways of, again, you're going to pay for the convenience. You decide where it's going to go. But was anybody crying for Amazon back then when they were, when he was working? He still owns the original desk that he had. When he's working out of his garage, not making a dime. And for years, Amazon, even after people knew what it was, didn't make money. Anybody crying for them? No. If they go broke tomorrow, are you going to cry for them? No. The question is, do they have something that you would benefit from?
Well,
and do you see the value in it? And to what extent? And we want to decide now that, the Susan, Elizabeth Warrens of the world, and as you mentioned, Bernie's, believe that there should be no billionaires because the government should take it. Once they get up to that point, the government should keep them right below that billionaire point and start taking property to make sure they never reach billionaire status.
Well, we wanted to address greed today because it had come up again, and it's something that we do. We probably should do it more than every couple of years. Mm-hmm. Reading another definition, greed is the incredible desire for material gain or social value, such as status or power. And that's why when we played the Milton Friedman cut from 1979, the late economist who said, what is greed?
Right.
Greed is,
right.
Greed is the other guy.
Right.
But what is greed? Greed is the intense and selfish desire for something. That doesn't sound like any company who voluntarily puts on the marketplace a product and you have the choice completely as to whether you wish to buy it or not. It is actually, in the endeavors in human society, one of the least greedy things, because in probably, 95+% of transactions, people are genuinely pleased with what they got and are happy and both sides are smiling.
Yeah.
And then you deal with political greed.
Yeah.
And you look at it, this whole thing, let's go after, it's liberals always, when they throw an accusation of you're racist, you find out they're racist.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with greed. Well, they're greedy. No, who's saying it? Biden. What's Biden trying to do? Well, he's trying to sell you that corporations are greedy and therefore we need to tax them more and therefore they'll be punished and you'll somehow benefit, instead of the truth, which is corporations aren't greedy. They don't fit the definition of greedy. Biden does by lying to the public that companies will be punished, when the truth is the poor and the middle class will be hurt, as they always are with hidden taxes, the most.
And he's lying
and
for his own power.
Right, in order to keep his power, to keep his status.
Yep.
That's selfishness.
Yep.
By the definition. Now, I know that the left wants to redefine all the words out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because if words have no meaning, then you can just use a word and that labels that group or that person evil without ever having to define it. That's a coward's way out.
Yep. Right.
And so it's just
if we can't change the conversation, we'll change the words in the conversation.
866-90-RED-I.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Once a roadside inspection is completed, the officer will close it out, which involves the officer writing or typing up the report. The more the officer found during the inspection, the longer this will take. If violations were discovered, most officers, as a courtesy, will explain the violations to the driver. If there were any out-of-service violations, the officer will normally explain what must be done to get the out-of-service order lifted. Drivers need to be very attentive during this part of the inspection. The driver also needs to read and understand the complete inspection report. After receiving the inspection report, the driver has 24 hours to get the roadside inspection report to the motor carrier. If the driver will not be returning to a company facility within the next 24 hours, the driver needs to know to get it on the way to you via email, mail, or fax within 24 hours. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carmen, and I'm Gary McNamara. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Let's go to Brian in Ohio. Brian, you're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Yeah, hi guys. Been listening to you for years. You guys are just interesting. Just really enjoy you.
Thank you.
I wanted to, Gary went on about why or when are people going to wake up to what they've been doing to us all these years. And I think it's because the American public in general, they don't care. They're not interested. The term you guys use is so apropos, willfully ignorant.
Yeah.
If you go to your doctor's office, and if guys notice, if you put your phone down, and I don't even have one, there are no magazines. What are they all doing? They're looking on their phones, and they have a resource to be well informed. And they're instead, you know what they're doing? Facebook, Netflix, whatever other chewing gum for the mind. They're not paying attention. I have coworkers. I have friends and family. You try to talk to them about this kind of stuff, they're not interested. And I'm in a heavily Republican county, and they're not informed. They don't care.
Yeah, I think it's easier to just look away, isn't it? And by the way, that's part of the distraction of a phone. And thank you, Brian, for the call and the input. We appreciate it. But that's, you make an interesting point because the phone can be one source of great information. You can find out anything, or it can be that distraction.
Yeah.
Oh, look, that's a cute video. Let me watch another one.
$866-90 Red Eye. Now's your chance to be the caller. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carmen, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Just a couple more things here that this actually happened on Friday, but I just wanted to read the transcript of it because this is pretty mind-boggling. There was a Pentagon press conference on Friday, and the question was to General Ryder, does the Department of Defense anticipate that Hamas will try to fire on them on the operation, when we're going into the ports? Look, I mean, there's certainly a risk, again, but if Hamas truly does care about the Palestinian people,
wow,
then again, one would hope that this international mission to deliver aid to the people who need it would be able to happen unhindered. Are you kidding me? That's not coming from a bureaucrat. That's coming from a general. I mean, it's just it's mind-boggling
It's delusional.
It's absolutely delusional.
Well, if Hamas truly cares.
I will say this yesterday, all the intelligence chiefs were in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom Cotton asked the question, basically, are the Israelis starving children? Well, because the war is in there and you can't get aid in, that some children are starving. Well, that's basically what I'm asking is Israel committing a genocide of children?
Right.
Well, because there's a war going on, so you're talking the collateral damage of a war versus the intentional genocide, which the left has just embraced.
Oh, yeah.
The other question, this is really interesting. This is Senator Tom Cotton talking to the Office of Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, and asking her about, and this is, I haven't heard this from anybody in the intelligence community.
Mm-hmm.
And the question basically is Iran directing, orchestrating what's going on with the proxies, or just funding them and they're on their own? And he brings up an article from Newsweek that said basically they're funding them, this Newsweek article, and then he goes to the actual the worldwide threat report that they gave him. And this is just really interesting because with what Biden has done to fund Iran, is so reprehensible after you hear this.
Mm-hmm.
But here it is.
Director Haynes, there have been several news reports, you might say leaks, to the effect that Iran does not have full control of its proxy groups. That's a headline from Politico last month. The quote, while Iran is supporting the proxy groups financially and with military equipment, intelligence officials do not believe it is commanding the attacks. Its lack of control over the Houthis and the militias in Iraq and Syria has muddied the deliberations in Washington about how to respond to repeated attacks on U.S. interests in the region, including the attack in Jordan on January 28th that killed 3 American troops. But on page 18 of the assessment, the intelligence community writes, Tehran was able to flex the network's military capabilities in the aftermath of Hamas's attack on October 7th, orchestrating anti-Israel and anti-U.S. attacks from Lebanon to the Bab el-Mandab Strait while shielding Iranian leaders from significant consequences. Orchestrating is stronger than anything I've heard. It's not providing support or training or funding. So it's your assessment, the intelligence community assessments, that Tehran has orchestrated attacks on Israel and against U.S. personnel and positions in the Middle East since October 7th?
Yes, and I don't think that means that that the proxy groups or that others are always listening to everything that they have to say or under their direct control. But I think orchestrating is an appropriate characterization of what they've looked to do.
So it has, to use the dictionary definition, arranged or directed the elements of a situation to produce a desired effect, especially surreptitiously. That's correct? Okay.
And she shook her head yes. So just so people know. And this is where you go, my God, we we need funding for Israel as we ensured that Iran has the funding, not just for the proxies to act independently, but for Iran to orchestrate the attacks on the United States and Israel.
Right. And let's put a port in so that we can give them help directly in Gaza because they're funding Hamas.
And I'll agree with Tom Cotton. I have not heard that before. And Tom Cotton said, he goes, I've never seen this before. This is coming from, remember, this is coming from the intelligence, agencies.
Mm-hmm.
That they're like, no, Iran's orchestrating it. Not just funding, not just arming, but actually orchestrating the attacks.
Right.
Maybe not all of them, but a significant portion of them. Wow.
That paints now the entire picture. That it's not funding the proxies in some kind of chaotic way to create chaos in order to create chaos. Because then you have to look at it and say, okay, the orchestration, then to what end? What would be the goal? Well, for Iran, wipe Israel off the map.
Well, and destabilize the relationship between the United States and Israel is exactly what's happening, because we know
what's happening.
When push comes to shove, Biden will take the side of Hamas.
And did with this now plan to put a port in Gaza.
Yep. It has to be known. I saw that one actor was talking about, the going on, and these are terrorist supporters. These are Hamas supporters.
Yep.
These are people that are pro the butchering and rape murders of women and children.
Yeah.
They are pro that. And they're trying to compare, because that's why I thought it was so important that somebody asked the question, well, is Israel committing a genocide against them? Or are children dying? Well, yeah, children are dying, but they're dying not because Israel is killing them, but because there's a war going on. And during a war, you can't get all the needs that people need in their medical care or whatever. It's just impossible to do so, which is why I said, which is why we would like the ceasefire. Well, there's been a ton of ceasefires offered, even by Israel. Hamas won't take any of them. Right. Hamas is not going to give back all the hostages. It's all they have.
It's everything they have.
Did I say Iran?
No.
Okay, I thought I said
Hamas.
Okay. I thought I said Iran.
No, they're not going to.
No. And so it's like, that's why we need to say, so it's not the Israelis' fault then. Israel is not targeting children and or civilians, because that's what the left's calling it, a genocide. And a genocide is specific. A genocide is not the fact that there is collateral deaths of innocent people during a massive war that's going on.
Well, in the world, and the liberal media of the world is taking and this administration is taking the information right from Hamas.
Oh, yeah.
Hamas is controlling all of the propaganda here. Yep. All of it. And they know how to shape this. This isn't new for them. None of this. And as you point out, without the hostages, it would be over quick. Very quick. Because Israel would end it. Well, you have the hostages, and it's not, sorry, but the geopolitical environment right now has Israel tapping the brakes on it. You hope to get those hostages back. What is the reality? Well, as long as Hamas has them, they have control. That's the situation, and they're not going to give up those hostages. They're just not. Because they're not going to give up control. It would be the end of their organization.
And the other overall general, because Christopher Wray was talking about the border and the security threat at the border.
Yeah.
And then to sit there and see, remember, these are all his people talking.
Right.
Basically going against what the administration and the Democratic Party is trying to sell as the people that actually gather the intelligence.
Yesterday was Red Alert Day.
Yesterday was Red Alert Day
from the
administration. Senate Intelligence Committee. And it's like nobody in the Democrat side cares what is actually happening at the border and what is happening, how that Iran now is, as the intelligence agencies have said, basically orchestrating the attacks against the United States and Israel. And they have been since it started. It's not, they're just funding these offshoot groups, the proxies that are just doing whatever they want. They're orchestrating it according to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
When I saw Director Wray's comments on the border, and it's like I'm in a room and I'm turning, because it is, to me, that's Red Alert. And I turn around, and it's an empty room. It's like, where is the actual red alert?
Yeah.
This is coming from this administration.
Is giving you, the intelligence agencies and law enforcement are giving you all the red alerts you need, and the administration, the president, is completely ignoring what his own people are saying.
All of it. Nothing's going to be done. Nothing's going to be done. When it comes to Israel and Hamas, we're going to put a port in Gaza. We're going to help Hamas. When it comes to the southern border, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything.
And then the one general at the Department of Defense. Well, if Hamas really cares for the Palestinian people, they'll let this. What are you? I mean, you sound like
John Kerry.
To me, I hear that. I'm sorry if you're a general and I'm the president, and you say that, I'm sorry, you're gone.
Bye.
You're gone. No general.
I don't know if they truly care. Are you kidding me?
To have that and the analysis, I know he's put it in the question form, but it makes the United States military and the United States look like a bunch of damn morons.
Well,
we're buying the propaganda of terrorists that will butcher, rape, and murder.
We're going to work for them.
Men, women, and children.
We're going to work
for them. I know it's absolutely
We're putting
insane.
the port in, putting our service members in harm's way.
God, jeez.
To go to work for terrorists. Joe Biden, everybody.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Wow.
Happy Tuesday.
I'm sorry. It's just when the last couple of hours. It's just like, and I'm not angry. I just get frustrated.
Well, but we've been talking about how, I've said it multiple times. I believe we're at this crossroads. It's not just November 5th. Although November 5th is a huge part of it. But we're at a point where over the next several years, we're going to have to make some very tough decisions as a nation. And that requires pulling your head out, looking up, setting the phone down, and making choices that will be at some point hard. They're hard now. The right choices often are. Looking away isn't going to make it go away. Closing your eyes and laying down doesn't mean your problems will be gone when you open your eyes again and stand up. We have to fix this. And on many levels right now, we have to fix these items. We have to fix the southern border. We need to have a president who, at the very least, I don't care if they like the person or not, they need to know that that person is in control, and if something happens from their administration, they can trust what's going on there. And when you see the red alerts that we saw yesterday from Director Wray on the southern border and everything going on with Hamas.
Well, when Christopher Wray said there's a smuggling network on the southern border that has ISIS ties.
Yeah.
And the left is out there promoting the fact that, well, don't you realize these people, they do all the work in this country. By the way, that's going to tick off a lot of people.
Yeah.
They do all the work. And,
right.
And we need to come here, and there should be no difference between legal and illegal. And Ray's saying that. It's like there's this huge disconnect within his own administration.
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.